Hey, I'm Dave Anthony, joined with a panel of experts from across the Manitoba Junior Hockey League to break down the opening round playoff series in both the MGEU East and the MGEU West divisions. We're going to start in the MGEU West, and we're going to start with the matchup between the Swan Valley Stampeders and the Dauphin Kings. We're lucky enough to have both voices of those respective clubs join us, Benny Walchuk and Darnell Duff. And Benny, let's start with you. Swan Valley finished first in the Western Division, so they get to host. How much is home ice going to matter to the Stampeders in the opening round?
I think it's going to matter lots. It's the way that they're playing right now on home ice. It's hard to beat them. They just had that style. The fans are getting into it. Everybody's more comfortable, and just starting off at home in that first game is trying to get them off the right foot. I know starting last year on the road in Dauphin for the first couple of games, they didn't quite get into it, didn't get the timely goals they needed. And a lot of those guys are playing their first dose of junior playoff hockey. So it kind of took them lots to get into it. So I think playing that home ice, and who knows what happens in that game 5 or game 7, if they can have that extra home ice, I think it'll be a big advantage for them going forward.
Darnell, Dauphin actually owned the season series 4-2 and outshot Swan Valley in 4 out of those 6 games. That's a big confidence boost for a Kings team who may be an underdog in that opening round series.
Yeah, and I mean, you take a look at that season series. 3 of the Kings' wins came in overtime. 5 of the games were 1-goal games. And the big story of this series, in my opinion, is the play of Kobe Grant. He's the MJHL goaltender of the year at .269 goals against average and a .933 save percentage. The Kings fans and fans around the league saw what he did in round number 1 against Dauphin last year, almost pushing the eventual champions to 7 games. He's come back on a mission this year. He is oh so good. He's really tough to beat. Even if you put traffic in front of him, Kobe Grant is really one of the premier goalies in this league. If the Kings want to have any chance, it's easier said than done, but they're going to have to find a way to get behind a very good defensive core led by Colin Jennings. You have Adam Raysigal on the back as well as Warren Marcotte, but the biggest guy they have standing certainly is their netminder in Kobe Grant. He's fun to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see how this series unfolds.
Absolutely. Let's go to an outsider's point of view, Kevin Pauls. And yes, brace yourself. It is still Kevin Pauls, even though he doesn't have the beard. He still has the intelligence and the smarts and all of that. Kevin, what do you think about this series? I mean, on paper, it's going to be back and forth. Swan's very fast. Dauphin's kind of gritty. What do you think about this series overall?
Well, Doug Edley started things rolling there after Christmas. The Kings really started coming into form. Both teams match up relatively similarly, and I think Darnell said it. It's going to boil down to goaltending. I mean, Cole Sheffield, I thought, played fantastic for the Kings down the stretch, and obviously it boils down to how dominant Kobe Grant can be. He showed off his talent throughout the course of the year and took home top goaltending honors there. And it's going to be who buries their chances and who stays out of trouble in the penalty box.
Benny, let's go back to you. Swan Valley has obviously got one of the top lines in the MJHL with Sauter, Keck, and Jones. But the team kind of rides those guys in all situations, 5-on-5, power play, and penalty kill. Is it going to be too much? Are they going to be able to sustain their high level of play through a playoff series that's going to be a physically grinding one like this one?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a little bit different. They've been able to sustain it pretty much all season long. It's going to be different when Doug Headley and his coaching staff have a chance to maybe batch up a line or defensive core against them. But they've proven they can sustain that offense all year. The last number of stretches, they've won 14 of the last 15 games. And I think the big part of that, they're getting definitely some depth scoring in their defense. Like Darnell talked about, Adam, Warren, Colin Jennings, they all over 10 goals this season. Colin led the way with 16 goals, and they get them depth scoring that way. And also they've been getting some depth scoring up front as well. Alex Walicki's been very good the last couple of weeks, providing some offense. Stephen Arps provided some offense, and he's kind of kicking into full gear as well now. So if they can get that depth scoring, which they'll probably need here, as mentioned, it's going to be Doug Headley is going to do a good job of trying to match up Jacob, Justin, and Trey. I'm sure Wolfie is going to try to maybe slip out Trey or Jacob on a different line and try to avoid those matchups going forward. But I think they can sustain it, but they definitely need that depth scoring from not only their forward units up front, but also their D-core, which has been very good this year.
Darnell, you talked about the trouble that Dauphin's going to have scoring goals against Kobe Grant, and they got a couple guys that have figured him out. Mason Smith, Jacob Brook have got a couple of goals. But let's look at the defense. We know that Swan is very fast. They love to transition. They'll dump and wear you down in the corners. Is Dauphin's defense built to withstand what Swan Valley is going to throw at them throughout this series?
Yeah, I really do believe they are. You have a guy like Aiden Brook who loves to play a physical style. And coming into this series, it's going to be a rough series. It's going to be rough and tumbling. You need guys who are going to go down into the trenches. They're going to go into those wars. Of course, he was with the team last year, winning that championship. Nolan Wickham has looked fantastic in the past couple of weeks, really coming into his own. Guy like Captain Owen Wareham having a career year. He continues to put together solid performances. And then Sam Bolt, the guy who is really coming into his own as well, started the season in the SJHL. But a guy who I really like to key on the back end is Anthony Bax. He missed the last 3 games. He was suspended after a hit. But when he is on the ice, he is making a difference. He has great wheels, high hockey IQ. He will go in whatever situation. I remember a couple of weeks back in a game against Niverville, he was rode hard into the boards, was slow off the ice, missed 2 minutes, came back out, and then scored a goal. He is so good. He does not shy away from any contact. That's going to be a big challenge for the Kings, matching the physicality that the Stampeders are going to bring. And in my opinion, Dauphin's defense certainly has what it takes, and looking forward to seeing them meet up with the challenge. They're certainly ready for it. I know that's a big talk in the dressing room. Match the physicality, and I believe they do have what it takes.
Kevin Pauls, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, and then we're going to get to predictions from the gang here in just a sec. But who has more pressure on them heading into this series? Swan Valley, who finished first in the MGEU West, or the Dauphin Kings coming in as defending champs? And I know that a lot of that team has moved on, but they still have the core pieces, and Doug Headley still leading, and that franchise has certainly not forgotten last season. Who has more pressure on them?
Well, I think as a repeating, the potential for a repeating champion, there's a lot of that, and a lot of eyes are on them and a target on their backs. But I think it's Swan Valley's turn to kind of start ramping up their championship, goals and aspirations. And I think finishing first certainly put them in a position where, the only way to go is down. They have a chance here against a really good team, and I think Darnell's right again too. With it, it's going to be a physical series, and I think Swan Valley is going to have to come with their hard hats on and ready for whatever they can. Because last year, a couple of those games went to overtime, and those games could have gone either way. But here, they have a real shot. They have good goaltending and a good supporting cast. I think the pressure is squarely on the shoulders of Swan Valley Stampeders.
All right, before we get the predictions, Benny, one last question for you. I'm just going to tee it up and leave the answer blank for you to fill in. The Swan Valley Stampeders win this series if...
Oh, boy. If Colby Grant's the best player and if they can get depth scoring, that's going to be the biggest key for them.
Darnell, the Dauphin Kings win this series if...
They make the big-time save at a big moment, and they find a way to stop the offensive core. I mean, you look at the Stampeders' offense, they're dominant. 195 points combined of that first line that you alluded to earlier in the show, Dave. So solid offense, getting a key goal, getting a key save, and stopping that three-headed horse there in Swan.
All right, let's start the predictions. We'll go to Kevin Pauls, who's not as invested in this as the other two. Kevin, what do you think? In a 7-game series, you got Swan or Dauphin?
I got Swan coming out of this one. No offense, Darnell, but I think Swan's going to get the better of him this year.
Given your pundits' picks in the past, that may be just music to Darnell's ears, and Benny may have just got a tear a little bit there. Benny Walchuk, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the Stampeders' depth and I think home ice will be a big factor for them. And I think they do have the better goaltending overall, of course, with Kobe and Nets. And I think I'm going to take the Stamps in 6.
Darnell?
Yeah, I think that first game is going to be key for both teams. I think more importantly for the Kings, if they want to have a chance to win this series. Friday's game is massive. Little different going 1-1-1. I'm going to go with the Kings in 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised if this series goes 7. I think it's going to be on paper one of the best series in the first round. Looking forward to 2 teams battling it out. I mean, it's a great rivalry, one of the best in Manitoba. I'll take the Kings in 6, but looking forward to what should be a fun journey.
I think that you guys are right. It's going to be an absolute battle through 7 games. It may be whoever has the most players standing at the end. And I'm leaning Swan in 7 because they're at home. I think it's going to be a home battle throughout. And I think it's going to come down. It's going to be 1-goal games throughout, but Swan in 7 as Kevin said, it's their time.